We went through a lot of difficulties. Concilio, growing up.
This organization from day one struggled to be identified with authorities, with all the departments of the city and the state to make things happen. We as Latinos did not have the opportunity like many other community has, that they got their own politicians. We didn't have nobody, so we had established our own ways of doing things and work hard.
In 1962, were non-existent, and treatment by the police, treatment by other agencies, we couldn't get a job. In those days, if they found 3 or 4 Puerto Ricans or Spanish-speaking in a corner, they rounded them up and took it to the headquarters, whatever. It was really bad. It was really bad.
When I came to Concilio, there was no funding. It was just, Concilio was a group of people, very tiresome people, working very hard, doing activities, social activities, and trying to help out the community in many, many ways, especially employment and social work.
To be a member of Concilio, you have to be part of an organization. And there were about 13 or 15 organizations that belong to the Concilio. And they sent 5 members to the General Assembly. And from that assembly, they selected the board of directors, the president, vice president. We had a constitution. The constitution clearly defines how many years president 1 year, and vice president, and so forth. So for 1 year, and 1 year was enough.
If you compare that time, the visibility of the Latinos at that time, to the visibility now, I mean, we have had people that have served as city solicitors that are Latinos, Ken Trujillo, Nelson Diaz, Rami Diaz. Judges, we have a number of judges now in state court, municipal court, even in federal court. And it's an organization like Concilio that I think helps put the Latinos out in the light and makes us more visible.
And so the first agency president was Moises Gonzalez.
Moises Gonzalez, he was the maker of the Concilio, all of the agency.
Of the agency in '66.
In '66, and I was there till 1970.
I became involved in Concilio in 1968.
There was one person really that was responsible for getting me involved in Concilio, and that was Ramonita Rivera.
Everyone wanted to be part of it.
And it wasn't just Philadelphia. She actually reached out to everywhere in the Delaware Valley. Reading and Bethlehem, Bristol, any of those towns that were starting to get together as a Puerto Rican group, as an entity. She was actually out there helping them, and in most cases on board of directors and so on.
First of all, the festival was started by the La Iglesia La Milagrosa Spanish Chapel in 1957. and they used to have around the neighborhood a parade, and everybody, organization or the church and other groups will come in and present their beautiful costumes, not only Puerto Rican but also other Latin American, for the Cubans, Mexicans, and so they were all together doing this thing. Around 1962, the church decided that it's too much for them, they cannot do this no more, and they asked the little group of Concilio people if they can handle that. And that's what the Concilio started the festival in 1964, I think it was.
That first parade was an inspiration, but it was a big event for us, a little organization having to push to push City Hall. You don't know the difficulties we had about the permits. And the police department and everybody, what's going on?
It was still a very basic parade with handmade items and a lot of energy, and there seemed to be a lot of support from whatever the companies that saw the Hispanics coming into play eventually. So there was a lot of energy, I would say.
Well, I remember Concilio as a kid, coming out of the parades, the Desfile Puertorriqueños. We would go to our parish mass at St. Bonaventure's, and then we would come out, and all of us would parade all the way down to the Parkway, line up. I remember it being a very huge event. We would line up on the Parkway, go down Chestnut Street all the way to Market, and we would end up at Independence Hall. Great entertainment, all kinds of carrozas.
I think we used the festival also as an anchor for education.
It was people from all different places. It was down in Center Cities. It was a really huge event, lots of dancing, lots of traditional pleneras and bomba, all kinds of like things that I remember growing up here in North Philadelphia, never been in Puerto Rico. This is kind of like the little PR that I remember growing up.
I think that was the job of the Concilio to do, to see that our community will get ahead.
Actually, Concilio had a program called the Welcoming Program, and it was specifically to welcome new immigrants to Philadelphia. And to this day, we still get calls at Concilio from individuals that first come to Philadelphia just to find out, you know, where do I go for X?
This is our city, that we live here. This is part of that we're part of this community, that we're important to who Philadelphia is. And I think Concilio really represents that. We've been here over the years, and we've adjusted time and time again and again to the changes that have happened around us, no matter where the neighborhood has moved and no matter what the needs of the neighborhood have been.
Right, well, I think we're in a good place. I mean, it's exciting, number one, again, to celebrate 50 years, just knowing how much the environment has changed, you know, how much Philadelphia has changed, communities have changed, and one thing that I think Concilio has been always instrumental in doing is assessing the community needs and also just the environment, you know, both, again, the economic environments, the social environments of our communities. And not staying stagnant and staying, you know, abreast of what's needed next. And so I think celebrating the 50 years of change over those 50 years I think is a good thing. And I think it puts us in a good place under new leadership over the last, you know, 2.5 years with board development, with new infrastructure, to position us in a place where we are now continuing to assess what are the community needs, what are the environmental changes impacting our communities, and really being strategic about what are our next steps in terms of programs. Specifically, that's our core of our mission is our social service work that we do.
What's really exciting about where we are today with Concilio is that we have a chance to really redefine how much of a difference we can make going forward, and how much of a difference the Latino community and the Puerto Rican community in Philadelphia in particular can make for Philadelphians as a whole.
A mí me gusta cantar.
I want to thank all the people in this community that have supported and helped Concilio over the past many years, in the good times and the bad times. As we know, things have been great at times for our community, and things have been challenging at times for our community. And Concilio has been a big part of that on both ends of those challenges and successes. And we want to thank all the members in the communities, particularly the leadership, but also the people who every day come and volunteer and support us and make Concilio the kind of organization that it is. Thank you very, very much.
Cantando yo vivo, cantando yo vivo, cantando, cantando.